though it is a sign of weakness to have empathy. In the Senate, well, it was late into the night, and in the Senate, you walk onto the Senate floor, and there are these big wooden ornate doors. And those ornate doors opened. And John McCain came out.
But y'all motherfuckers think you're gonna shame somebody or bully a into voting for this? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And now you're gonna make me be Mr. Anti. You keep coming at me with this bullshit. You keep coming at me talking about, oh, it's a shame that you're not supporting a black woman. She's not black. She's Indian. She ain't black. Get out of here.
He's going after me. And I'm going back after him. I'm going back after him. And that was it. And this is what the public saw.
People want to act like Trump is the worst motherfucker in the world, but guess what? He was already president, and all this shit you talking about didn't happen. He didn't make himself a dictator, and this whole shit about he's going to make himself a dictator is really taken so out of context that it's ridiculous. He said he'd make himself a dictator on the first day, to implement some shit, and then, but that was, trust me, said tongue-in-cheek. It was not said seriously. Y'all already living in Project 2024. Okay, you worried about Project 2025 when they already ran Project 2020 on you with the scandemic and all that fucking bullshit. Like, what the fuck are y'all really even talking about?
I think we're in for a real treat over these next couple weeks, man. I think these next couple weeks are probably going to be the most entertaining time that we've ever seen in American politics. And I mean, just think about where we're at. I mean, we've never seen the left so fragile. We've never, ever from either side seen a more empty or vapid or hollow candidate as we have in Kamala Harris. And I don't think we've ever had such a culturally significant Republican candidate as we do in Donald Trump. I mean, just think about what we've witnessed so far, man. We've watched the machine do literally everything it possibly can to demean and destroy Donald Trump for almost a whole entire decade by now. We've seen fake insurrections. We've seen fraudulent impeachments. We've seen incredibly bogus criminal convictions and other criminal cases. Attorney generals have tried to bankrupt the guy and literally bankrupt his entire family. And we've seen it all. We've seen states manipulate the Constitution, try to take advantage of the 14th Amendment. And we've seen Democrats run a coup on their own president, right? We've seen 2 assassination attempts. One of them got so freaking close that the guy got shot in the freaking ear. So we've seen it all, man. And still, even with all that, I think there's possible that there's still more to come, right? Because here's the thing. There is nothing in the world quite like a cornered and frightened Democrat. And I don't think anything frightens them more, apparently, than men, than you and me. They are frightened that you and I are not going to line up and do exactly as we're told. And they think if Kamala loses, which I sincerely hope is the end result, they believe it's going to be the fault of guys just like me. But the good news is they feel like they finally have a way to reach us.
I'm a man.
I'm a man.
I'm a man, man.
And I'm man enough.
I'm man enough to enjoy a barrel-proof bourbon.
Neat.
Man enough to cook my steak rare.
Man enough to deadlift 500, then braid the out of my daughter's hair.
You think I'm afraid to rebuild a carburetor? I eat carburetors for breakfast.
I ain't afraid of bears.
That's what bear hugs are for.
I'll tell you another thing I sure as shit am not afraid of. Women.
I'm not afraid of women.
I'm not afraid of women.
They want to control their bodies? I say go for it.
They want to use IVF to start a family? I'm not afraid of families.
They want to be childless cat ladies?
Have all the cats you want.
Woman wants to be president?
Well, I hope she has the guts to look me right in the eye and accept my full-throated endorsement.
Because I'm man enough to support women.
Man enough to know what kind of donuts I like.
Man enough to admit I'm lost, even when I refuse to ask for directions.
Man enough to not ban young women from reading Little Women.
Or one of those pants books that the sisters like.
I'm man enough to raw dog a flight. It sucked. Not worth it.
I'm man enough to be emotional in front of my wife.
In front of my kids.
In front of my horse. I'm man enough to tell you that I cry at Love Actually. Good Will Hunting.
West Side Story.
That and Predator.
And I'm sick of so-called men domineering, belittling, and controlling women just so they can feel more powerful. That's not how my mama raised me.
I love women.
I love women who support their families.
Women who decide not to have families.
Women who take charge.
And I'm man enough to help them win.
I am sincerely sorry for making you sit through that. I know that is just incredibly freaking cringy, right? But I think, honestly, I think it's important to see because it shows us exactly who these people really are. It shows us what they think, at least. And I promise you, man, every single one of those guys is, in fact, not just afraid of women, but they are absolutely terrified of women. And I think probably at least more than half probably haven't touched a woman in a pretty damn long time, right? But this is who these people are. This is what these people think will work. They think that they can either guilt men into voting for Kamala, or I don't know, maybe they think that if they could just explain to men why they just need to support her, then maybe they will, right? And here's the thing, man. Every time you feel the need to explain yourself in any kind of argument or any kind of situation like politics especially, you've already lost, man. And if you feel the need to tell men that they need to man up and vote for a woman, then there's probably about 0% chance that that's actually going to happen, right? And I found a pretty great CNN clip that might be the most common sense thing ever said on that network.
I mean, this is a political party that thinks gender is just a state of mind, and all of a sudden they're like, oh my God, we have trouble with moderate biological males. I mean, who is surprised about this? I think Democratic Party elites like Obama and like others have been viciously attacking Donald Trump since 2016. And everything they've said about him is what they have always said about him. And I don't think it's particularly effective right now. I think their problem isn't attacking Trump. Their problem is finding reasons to give people to support Kamala Harris. This stop he made in this plea he's making to African-American men. I mean, he said today he insulted them. I mean, he, first of all, admits that they're not enthusiastic about her. He said, you just aren't feeling the idea of having a woman as president, and you're coming up with other alternatives and reasons for that. And I think one thing we've seen about Democrats over the years is that when they can't convince you to do something, they begin to insult you. Obama specifically, when he was having trouble with rural voters in Pennsylvania, go back all the way into his campaigns, he insulted them about their culture and values. I don't think it's helpful to insult a group of people who are already not enthusiastic about your campaign, but I think that's what he did today. The story tonight is they're struggling with men, Obama's insulting men, and they're out saying, well, let's fix it by sending Tim Walz out and hiring Mitt Romney. It's crazy to me.
I'm sorry, this is not a campaign strategy to name Mitt Romney the Secretary of State.
Are you agreeing?
I don't
think a suggestion in a report.
Exactly. I don't think we should force any candidate to name who their cabinet is prior to even winning. I think they should be out there talking to voters.
I totally agree with that.
See? Wow.
Complete agreement
Scott
with that.
Giddings, Ashley Allison agree.
I'm telling you, man, when you're parading out Barack Obama to berate and belittle black men, and when you're sending out Tim Waltz in flannel and brand new hunting gear to appeal to the rest of us, then you are literally, that is the definition of desperate. I mean, they've essentially told Kamala Harris, their strong black female candidate, to just zip it, sit down, be quiet, and just let the men go out and close it up for her. That's essentially what they're doing. That's exactly what they're doing here, right? They're dedicating full segments to bashing men into submission. But I think the way they're doing it is almost pointless, man. I mean, it's got to be pointless, right? Because they're doing it on places like MSNBC. And I don't know, maybe it's just me, but my gut tells me that any man actually watching MSNBC as an actual viewer, and not just like me, like you watch something at the zoo, anyone who's actually watching MSNBC is not the kind of guy that they're talking about. But this is what they're up to, man. And I don't know if this is strategy or if this is just sick and twisted propagandists coping in front of all of us just live on TV.
Did a piece looking at sort of the culture inside the Trump campaign, which translates to what they say and how they act publicly. And as you know, covering politics, the tone is often set from the top. And so that's with former President Trump. And what we found was sort of a striking and deliberate machismo and bro culture that, you know, goes from the language the aides use to describe people. Our lead scene as they're talking about how to handle stories they don't like from reporters, and a top guy on the campaign says, well, we'll just beat them into retardation, which is just not language that is acceptable by just about anyone. And this is also how the statements they release, the names they call President Biden, Vice President Harris, who they choose to highlight. And obviously there are concerns concerns from their own allies, from Nikki Haley about how they talk to women, how they talk about women, about the tone. But part of this, last thing I will say briefly is that Susie Wiles, the top woman on the campaign, has privately told confidants that the biggest challenge is that managing, quote unquote, too much testosterone. But this is also, in certain ways, a deliberate play for men. And I remember going to the convention, the RNC, and watching and saying, what are they going to do to bring women back into the tent? How are they going to woo women? And I watched and I realized they're not. That's not their main concern. They are doubling and tripling down on their reliable voters, which are younger male voters. And you see it in this culture.
It's kind of interesting when you think about it, man. When you really watch and really listen to these people, it's interesting. I mean, Ronald Reagan said it best: a rising tide lifts all boats. And that is just a really just very, very simple way to say the policy should be for everyone, man. As far as the left wants you to believe that there's some special magical policies for black people and special policies for women, real ones, and then there's special policies for fake women, and who knows, maybe even special magical policies for fake black people. As much as they might believe that, as much as they really expect you to believe it, it's just not true, man. There are no fancy magical policies or ideas for specific little groups. I mean, the reason that these people feel like Donald Trump isn't wooing women is because he's not. He's not trying to woo white people or green people or guy people or any other arbitrary group. He is talking to the American people. And I understand that sounds cliche. As cliche as that really does sound, it's true, man. And it should not be such a radical thing. Anytime you hear one of these people talk about, political wooing, just replace the word woo with pander. These people expect politicians to pander to them. They expect to just fake pandering. That's what they want. And it makes perfect sense. I mean, that's what these people have become accustomed to. I mean, some people have made entire careers and identities off just meaningless, hollow pandering.
And the reason some people think, well, I don't know, I remember that economy when he first came in being pretty good. Yeah, it was pretty good because it was my economy. We had 75 straight months of job growth that I handed over to him. It wasn't something he did. I had spent 8 years cleaning up the mess that the Republicans had left me the last time. So just in case everybody has a hazy memory, he didn't do nothing except those big tax cuts. I'm sorry, gentlemen. I've noticed this especially with some men who seem to think Trump's behavior, the bullying and the putting people down, is a sign of strength. And I am here to tell you that is not what real strength is. It never has been. Real strength is about working hard and carrying a heavy load without complaining. Real strength is about taking responsibility for your actions and telling the truth even when it's inconvenient. Real strength is about helping people who need it and standing up for those who can't always stand up for themselves. That is what we should want for our daughters and for our sons, and that is what I want to see in a president of the United States of America.
Did you happen to catch the irony there, man? Obama, while talking about how great he was and everything that he accomplished between Republican disasters, and the chyron at the bottom of the screen said, Trump doesn't think about anyone but himself. I mean, that's pretty hilarious when you think about it, right? It's almost as funny as Barry talking about 75 months of the slowest and most pathetic growth in human history. I mean, they literally balanced just above recession for 8 straight years, which is actually pretty damn impressive when you think about it. But I mean, that's not even the point of this video. That's not the point here. The point is the Kamala campaign has paraded out Barack Obama to guilt and scold real men into voting for Kamala Harris. Not because of anything she's done, not because of anything she plans to do, but because of what she is. And basically, because they say it'll be good for our daughters. It'll be good for our daughters to watch their country get destroyed by an incompetent woman, right? But just in case Barry doesn't do the trick, Kamala, she's ready to send Midwestern manly dad in plaid Tim Waltz out on a man tour.
Governor Waltz, according to Politico, is going to be going out on a men tour, literally a tour of media to appeal to men.
They need to appeal to the needs of the voters. And so when I was a delegate for President Obama in both of his elections in Ohio, right now the vice president is down 11 points in Ohio, even though I fully expect President Trump to take Ohio as he did twice, but to be down 11 points compared to President Biden, that is a problem. But this other issue I want to bring up is a problem too. Why are black men being lectured to? Why are black men being belittled in ways that no other voting group? Now, a lot of love for former President Obama, but for him to single out black men is wrong. And some of the black men that I have talked to have their reasons why they want to vote a different way. And even if some of us may not like that, we have to respect it. So unless President Barack Obama is going to go out and lecture every other group of men from other identity groups, my message for Democrats is don't bring it here to black men who, by and large, don't vote much differently from black women. And why? As a politician, we should be trying to get all voters to vote. And hopefully there are a few good men out there who do care about the stripping away of some of women's bodily autonomy. But this is wrong for President Obama. It is a wrong course for the Harris-Waltz campaign to lay at the feet of black men when they have their reasons. In 2020, the vice president was labeled a cop, as we know.
But do you think, sorry to interrupt you, Nina, but do you think he's right? That one of the reasons is because they don't like the idea of a woman.
It might be some listen, black men are socialized in the same society as any other man. So yes, is misogyny maybe a part of it? But again, is President Obama and is the Harris-Waltz campaign going to lecture other male groups in the same way that they're lecturing
This is
black
not
men?
just about...
I don't think so.
It's not just about Pennsylvania. It's not just about men. It sounds like there's a concern that there's a broad problem for Vice President Harris with the blue wall.
I gotta say, man, this Nina Turner lady is badass. And she's absolutely right, man. You cannot blame the fact that your candidate is trash on black men. You can't do it. I mean, just think about where the Democrats are really at. The Kamala Harris campaign is going to brag about the fact that she's allegedly raised and is spending $1 billion. And of course, they say it's all grassroots, small donations, no dark money, no big money special interests there, right? Of course, that's not true. But just think about that. They've got $1 billion freaking dollars. And if you've turned on TV or you watched a YouTube video, you believe it. I mean, you can't get away from these ads. But there's not just the spending, right? What about the in-kind donations that they've got from the media? I mean, they've got something like 90% favorable coverage, and Donald Trump is basically the inverse, 90-something% unfavorable coverage. So that's at least worth $1 billion these days. So just think about that. After all the lawfare, after the 34 felonies, after the assault cases and fraud cases that we hear about literally all day, every single day, after the impeachments and the insurrections and literally billions and billions of dollars of spending, the Democrats are no better than tied, and they're probably losing. And that's amazing when you think about it. I mean, if you do the math, man, this is an absolute freaking crisis if you're the Democrats. But apparently they don't feel it. The Democrats are not in crisis. Apparently the only people in crisis are men.
Is actually for all men. You know, I think men are in crisis, actually, in this country. I think that plays out different ways. And not all men are in crisis, of course. And not all men are just at home listening to Joe Rogan, being angry or being recruited to fascism. Some just need therapy, like we all do. I go to therapy. That's great. But I think we need to have a real conversation about that rather than allowing this kind of drift toward this faux masculinity that we see Donald Trump evincing.
And what I see is...
Can you even believe these people, man? They are so sick and they're so twisted by their own insane propaganda that they think that any man that doesn't vote for Kamala Harris is just some guy in crisis. Those are just guys that are sitting at home, angry, being directed towards fascism by Joe Rogan. I mean, it's freaking amazing. I mean, the look on this lady's face, I mean, she's just totally calm, totally convinced, and completely and totally insane. I mean, this is why you do not get high on your own supply. I mean, these people believe that anyone who recognizes what a weak and worthless candidate Kamala is just a fascist in crisis. And apparently it doesn't have anything to do with the fact that no one knows what she believes, no one knows what she'd do. It has nothing to do with the fact that she wouldn't do anything differently than a cognitively struggling Joe Biden. It's only because they've been radicalized by Joe Rogan and they're drifting towards a faux masculinity, which of course is not to be confused with the new reimagined masculinity that we see exhibited in guys like Tim Waltz and Dougie Fresh Mhof, a guy who literally goes on MSNBC so that they can excuse and cover up all the radicalized Joe Rogan listener type behavior.
Spreading it about you, saying that tabloid stories about your personal life, saying it should be front and center. He's saying it about your wife and making incredibly crude and lewd suggestions about her past life. I'm just curious. I know I seem like a very zen, mindful person, but I think I'd be pissed off. And I'm just wondering, how do you all stay centered? How do you stay disciplined and not really go off and not really push back hard at these things?
We don't have time to be pissed off. We don't have time to focus on it. It's all a distraction. It's designed to try to get us off our game.
Does it get you off your game?
No. All we talk about is this election. We understand the stakes. We understand the responsibility.
What are the
understand
stakes?
The
What are the stakes?
Our very country, our future. What kind of future are we going to have?
Just think about what we're seeing here, man. Doug Mhof is accused of getting the nanny pregnant and then beating his girlfriend, right? And instead of asking him about that, Joe Scarborough asks him, how do you not get pissed off about these crazy right-wingers putting your business out there? And Mhof, instead of denying any of it or providing any context or any information at all, says it's just a distraction. They're just trying to screw up my newfound reimagined masculinity, right? It's completely and totally insane. I mean, can you even imagine what it must be like to be an MSNBC viewer, right? Your whole entire being is wrapped up in all the orange man bad theory, and they bring powerful Democrats on who are accused of doing everything that they tell you Donald Trump does, right? And not only do they don't ask them about it, but they help them cover it up. And just like Scott Jennings said, I mean, what do they expect?
I mean, this is a political party that thinks gender is just a state of mind, and all of a sudden they're like, oh my God, we have trouble with moderate biological males. I mean, who is surprised about this?
That might be the most logical and reasonable thing ever said on CNN. I mean, what did they expect, right? I mean, Doug Mhof, regardless of anything to do with nannies or assaults or whatever, Doug Mhof is the new acceptable masculine. And everyone who doesn't worship all things Kamala is a Joe Rogan inspired toxic masculine.
On what's on the ballot is the definition of masculinity going forward. Is it toxic masculinity, or is it a different kind of masculinity? Right. This table is driven by women, and it's frightening. What also leads me to is a piece in the Times today on Elon Musk, speaking of bros, and you are electing Elon Musk if you are also electing Donald Trump. Donald Trump's campaign has raised $300 million. Elon Musk's campaign, his super PAC is going to raise $150 million. Donald Trump said $500 million. You're getting this guy. Oh, yeah. You're getting the richest guy in the world who controls a major social media platform. It's dangerous. Yeah. Trump and Elon Musk together, and they talk about, everybody should read this piece in the Times. It's Maggie, it's Jonathan Swan, a whole bunch of people wrote it, and it talks about meeting with these billionaires. It has this sinister undertone to it. Oh, yeah. So there is masculinity, and the definition of masculinity is on the ballot. As far as your question about breaking through, I like what she did when she was talking about John McCain and giving his thumbs up, because she was very real. Like she's got to let it rip a little bit.
Yeah,
That's
let it
how
rip.
like, let it rip. Going back to the conversation
Let
of masculinity.
Kamala be Kamala.
Yeah.
Well,
not inject testosterone necessarily, but inject some WTF kind of attitude, if you.
Yeah. So according to MSNBC, it isn't our own sovereignty and our own border security that's actually on the ballot. It's not the fate of the Middle East or Eastern Europe. That's not on the ballot. It's not free speech. Apparently, it's not even the democracy that we've been hearing about for 4 freaking years, every single stinking day. Apparently, what's actually on the ballot is what kind of masculinity we're going to have moving forward. And is it going to be the toxic kind, which I'm starting to think when they actually mean actual masculinity. When they say toxic masculinity, I think that they mean just regular guys, right? But that's what they say is on the ballot. And what we really don't want, speaking of the bros, they say, is Elon Musk. Because apparently, if you elect Donald Trump, you're also electing Elon Musk. And honestly, it's kind of funny to hear the way they say it. You know, they say it's dangerous. You know, he's so rich. You know, he allows free speech on the internet. And if people don't have the internet, he provides it, like to storm zones and war zones or wherever it's needed, right? I mean, this is a guy who's literally responsible for much of the American space program, really the space programs of the entire world. The guy's a pioneer in electric cars, a pioneer in helping paralyzed people restore functions. He's a pioneer in solar and AI, but he's rich, right? He's rich and he's not a brain dead Democrat. So he's dangerous, as Donnie on MSNBC says. I mean, they say, you know, his involvement has these sinister undertones. And I mean, come on, man. I am so freaking sick of these people. I am hoping so bad for another Donald Trump victory. And I hope it sends all these people into just some sort of rehab counseling facility, right? But before they go, we get to enjoy the Tim Waltz Man Tour.
Vice President Harris was asked this week on The View if she would have done anything differently than President Biden that he has done in the past 4 years. And she said, quote, "There is not a thing that comes to mind." And she later said she would have a Republican in her cabinet. Yeah. And when it comes to President Biden and the presidency, do you see anything that you would have done differently?
Yeah, and look, as a governor, I was asked to be governor of this state when Donald Trump was president and when Joe Biden was there. And I watched Donald Trump dismiss the COVID pandemic. I watched him drive an economy into the ground. And I watched Joe Biden and Kamala Harris pick those pieces up. And I think for all of us, we make decisions, we reanalyze afterwards. I think the thing that drew me to this ticket, and I think what the vice president's talking about, is that her values on these hasn't changed. They have been working for the middle class. They've been doing all they can to make sure prices come down. They're protecting reproductive care.
So it makes me want to ask you, do you think that Biden's done everything right?
Well, look, I don't know if any of us do everything right, but I can tell you he's done everything in the best interest of the American public.
They were saying that, hey, these are policies that Kamala Harris could have done 3 years ago when she was in the White House with President Biden, and she never did. What do you say to people who bring that up?
Well, Donald Trump had 4 years to do it, if you're going to talk about that. And what the point is, you need a partner in Congress. You've seen these. We've seen different bills that are ready to pass, and Donald Trump makes sure he steps in. We saw it around immigration, a bipartisan bill, widely respected, wanting to make a difference in this, holding true to our values, securing the border. Donald Trump steps in and says, look, that's going to hurt my political future. Let's not make it.
Guys, just ask yourself this question, right? And I do not mean this as a slight against Michael Strahan. Seems like a hell of a guy. You know, his Giants beat Tom Brady and protected the Dolphins' undefeated season. So, I mean, that makes him a hero in my book, if you want to put it like that. But how is it possible? And what does it say about the media, the corporate media, man, that a guy who made his bones playing football and then made his TV bones taking over for Regis Philbin on a vanilla, unimportant morning talk show? How is it that this guy is asking these people more serious, more hard-hitting questions, and more importantly, actually asking follow-up questions, right? He's doing that more than award-winning actual journalists. I mean, come on. I mean, Michael Strahan, I mean, the guy, he's doing the work. And honestly, I don't think it's about being a journalist. I think he's actually fed up. He's had enough with these people, and he sees the writing on the wall, man, which I think probably puts him in a class all his own in the corporate media.
Angelo, just if you can ask briefly, you've been, a little bit leaning Harris, and I know tonight you raised some concerns. Why are you in the right-in camp right now?
In my opinion, the more I look back into it, the more I watch the debate, the more I look into her campaign, I cannot trust her. I'm not going to vote for Trump, but the more I think about it, the more I just don't know if I can vote for her because I just do not trust her. I'm more inclined to write someone who I feel like would best represent me through my vote.
Oh, okay. So first of all, we thank everybody for participating. Absolutely no bad things to say about people who participate in these conversations. We thank you so much. But does anybody at this table need to take a deep breath? Because I do. I just do.
We've been listening to Undecideds for weeks on 2A, and it's really hard to believe that there are still people who might vote third party or try to write in. It's just such a lack of understanding about the stakes and about why that's just throwing your vote away.
Oh my God.
I just have to say,
Dude, just listen to these people, man. They have literally zero clue what is happening. And you almost got to feel bad for them. And these people have to do their coping live on TV, which honestly, whether you like them or not, that's got to be pretty horrible, right? But they can't imagine that anyone exists that doesn't fully understand how high the stakes are of this election, right? Because that's what they think. They think anyone who would do anything other than vote for Kamala Harris just doesn't understand. You just don't understand the stakes. And it's freaking crazy. And I think some of these people on TV, I think they actually do believe it, but no one serious believes it. And I cannot imagine that the actual powerful Democrat elites actually believe it, because the way I see it, if these people actually believed that there was any real risk to democracy or the rule of law or whatever garbage they push, they would not be putting their one and only last hope in Kamala Harris. No one on the planet believes that much in Kamala Harris, not even her, right? No one on the planet probably believes that much in any Democrat. I mean, these people are just shocked. They're probably saddened, right? They're saddened that the last 10 years of their lives spent trying to destroy and degrade Donald Trump didn't work. I mean, they can't believe that after billions spent, after every stupid, dirty trick they could pull, after a decade of some pretty strong effort by these people, that there's just people that just aren't buying it, right? And I got a feeling that more and more people aren't buying it every single day. And I hope that's the case, man, because we got one last shot at this, man. And I think that much is clear. We have only one last opportunity, man. So please, guys, vote. Everybody, take everyone to vote with you. Share these videos. And that's all I got, guys. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. If you haven't already, be a part of our growth. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe. Most importantly, share the channel. I'll see you in the next one.